I have always been proud of my balanced physique, not too thin, not too big. However, I feel like I could be healthier, especially in my back and shoulders. After much hesitation and indecision, I finally decided to sign up for the gym. Even though I don't know much about exercises, I am determined to improve myself. The gym still feels quite new to me, but I am gradually getting used to everything. I've familiarized myself with most of the equipment, though the layout still confuses me in some areas. The gym has 2 changing rooms, one for customers and one for staff. At first, I didn't realize that the staff changing room was off limits to members. And then, on my 3rd workout session, an unforgettable incident happened. That day's workout was intense, maybe too intense. I was sweating and exhausted beyond belief. At that moment, I had only one desire, to take off my workout clothes and cool down. I just wanted to get out of the gym and refresh myself. Drained and unfocused, I didn't pay attention to the gym's layout. A door opened before me, and I assumed it was the entrance to the public changing room. I didn't notice the sign clearly marking it as a staff-only area until it was too late. The moment I stepped inside, I saw her, my trainer, the one I had always admired. She was standing in front of the mirror, dressed in sportswear. It was just a fleeting second, but it felt as if everything had frozen. Neither of us moved, the silence was deafening, as if time itself had stopped. The only thing I could hear was the pounding of my own heartbeat in my ears. I stood there, unable to move. My mouth was dry, my mind blank, I had no idea what to do. Should I apologize, turn around, or just disappear? But in the end, I did what anyone in my position would do. I blurted out a quick, sorry, and ran out the door. I didn't even know what I was apologizing for. Maybe just for existing in that moment. I couldn't stop, my face burned with embarrassment as I rushed out of the room, barely aware of where I was going. My legs felt like jelly, and I had to stop myself from bumping into everything around me. I kept telling myself to breathe. I was mortified. I couldn't believe I had made such a ridiculous mistake. How could I have walked into the staff changing room? How could I have accidentally run into her in such a private moment? As I made my way back to the main gym, my heart pounded, and my palms were slick with sweat. I kept replaying the moment over and over in my head, trying to understand how I had done something so stupid. I didn't even want to think about it. I was sure she was just as embarrassed as I was, maybe even more. The journey home was a blur. I could hardly focus on anything. I kept thinking about her standing there, dressed in just a sports bra and shorts. Her posture. Her body. Everything about the situation made me want to crawl into a hole and hide. I couldn't imagine facing her the next time I came to the gym. I was certain she would mock me, or worse, think I had done it on purpose. I had no idea how I would look her in the eye again. I spent the entire evening replaying the moment in my mind, over and over, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had ruined everything, that I had made things awkward between us forever. The next day, I dragged myself back to the gym. The thought of seeing her again made my stomach twist in knots. I had to avoid her. I couldn't face her after what had happened. As soon as I stepped inside, I saw her near the treadmills. At first, she didn't seem to notice me, but I couldn't stop glancing at her. She was doing her job, helping others with their workouts. My heart skipped a beat when I saw her. Even though I dreaded facing her, I tried my best to stay out of her way. I moved around the gym, keeping my head down whenever I caught a glimpse of her. My stomach felt tight. It was hard to focus on anything, and I could barely get through my warm-up without feeling like I was about to pass out. Then, after about 20 minutes, she walked up to me. "Hey," she said in a calm, friendly tone. She didn't look mad at all. I stood there, frozen, unsure of what to say. She smiled at me, but I didn't know how to respond. "You okay?" she asked, noticing how tense I was. I couldn't look her in the eye, I was too embarrassed. "Yeah, just tired," I mumbled, staring anywhere but at her. "About yesterday, don't worry about it." "It happens," she said with a light laugh. I've worked at this gym for years. Trust me, you're not the first person to walk into the wrong room. Her words immediately put me at ease. I felt a huge weight lift off my chest. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to, I started, but she raised a hand, stopping me. Seriously, it's okay, she said, her eyes kind and understanding. We all have embarrassing moments. It's part of life. For the first time, I was able to look her in the eye. There was no judgment, no anger, just warmth. It felt like the tension between us had completely disappeared, and I was so grateful for that. We ended up talking more than ever before, about workouts, about life, about silly things like our favorite music. It was just a normal conversation, but it felt special. And that's when I realized something. I had never really thought of her as anything other than my trainer before. But now, things felt different. It wasn't just about working out anymore. There was something more, something I couldn't quite put into words. For the first time, I felt like we were truly connecting. I wasn't just some awkward guy trying to get in shape. I was someone she could talk to. And that felt good. The next day, I walked into the gym with a heavy heart. Even though she had reassured me during our conversation, the idea of facing her after my accidental intrusion still felt overwhelming. I worried about how things would go, whether she would remember the awkwardness of that moment every time we spoke. I tried my best to focus on my workout. That was why I was here in the first place, right? But with every rep, my mind kept drifting back to that moment when I had walked into the wrong room. The image of her standing there, frozen just like me, was burned into my memory. The worst part was that I couldn't stop feeling embarrassed, even though she hadn't shown any anger at all. I could still feel the tension between us, even if it was only in my head. As I finished my set and wiped the sweat off my forehead, I heard her voice behind me. You okay? I turned around, startled, to see her standing there. She still had that friendly, professional smile, but this time, there was something different in her eyes, maybe curiosity, maybe concern. I could feel that she was trying to gauge how I was feeling. I'm fine, I said, too quickly. Just tired, as usual. She raised an eyebrow, clearly not buying my excuse. You don't look fine. What's wrong? I felt my face heat up, and I awkwardly rubbed the back of my neck. Nothing, really. She didn't look convinced. Come on. Let's talk for a minute. I think we both know what's been bothering you. I nodded, there was no point in denying it anymore. We walked over to a bench, where she motioned for me to sit. Leaning against the wall with her arms crossed, she still wore that easygoing smile. I'm guessing you're still embarrassed about yesterday? She asked, looking at me with both seriousness and amusement. I couldn't even look at her. Yeah. I mean, it's not something I can forget anytime soon. My voice was quiet, almost apologetic. She chuckled softly. I get it. Honestly, it was an easy mistake to make. I did the same thing when I first started working here. Her calmness reassured me, and I finally started to relax. For the first time since I stepped into that room, I felt like I could breathe again. She didn't seem like she was judging me. In fact, it was as if everything had been forgotten, dismissed as just a funny story. I guess I had been overthinking it. I admit I had looked up to her, but you never really know how someone will react. I didn't want to make things awkward. Her expression softened, and I noticed the genuine kindness in her eyes. She didn't believe me, honestly, I had faced worse situations than this. I was grateful for how much respect she had shown me. As for that, I didn't know what to say. A part of me still couldn't believe how she could be so calm, understanding the whole situation despite everything I had built up in my head. This was the last thing I expected. Thank you, I said softly, still feeling like I owed her an apology. I really didn't mean to make things uncomfortable. She waved a hand dismissively. It's no big deal, I promise. She hesitated for a moment before adding, you're a good person. I can tell. I looked at her, unsure of what to say next. There was a strange comfort in her words, but also a shift. Something about the atmosphere between us had changed. It felt a little less professional and a little more personal. "You know," she said, breaking the silence, "why don't you come by after your workout and grab a coffee? I know a little cafe nearby. We can talk more about the gym or whatever." That would be a chance to unwind after training. Her invitation caught me off guard. It wasn't what I had expected, but at the same time, I couldn't deny that I liked the idea. It wasn't just a friendly gesture, there was something behind her words, something that made me think that maybe she wanted to understand me beyond the gym. I hesitated only for a second before nodding. "Sounds good." She smiled, and for a brief moment, I forgot about everything else. There was no tension, no awkwardness, just two people talking, trying to understand each other. For the first time in a long while, I felt truly at ease. "Great," she said. "I'll meet you at the door when you're done. No rush." She turned back to the gym floor, and I found myself watching her walk away. I was still processing everything I hadn't expected, any of this, really. It felt like the world had shifted slightly, like things had become just a little lighter. But it wasn't just about the coffee. It was about how things were changing between us. Up until now, our relationship had been entirely professional, but in that moment, I knew that something bigger was starting to unfold, something that had started with an embarrassing mistake and was turning into something new. The days after that meeting were unexpected, to say the least. There's no other way to describe it. Everything between us had shifted. What started as a small awkward moment had turned into something else, at least for me. I had never thought I'd look forward to my next training session like this, not because of the exhausting workouts, but because of her. Every time I stepped into the gym, I felt a little more nervous, a little more excited. Our conversations during training became easier, lighter. She had always been kind, but now there was a playful warmth in our exchanges. We didn't just talk about sets and reps anymore. We talked about life, music, little strange things that made us laugh. Sometimes, I caught her looking at me with a different kind of gaze, not the professional look she gave her clients, but something softer, something more captivating. Sometimes she laughed at my jokes a little longer than necessary, and I felt something stir in my chest. I wasn't sure if I was just imagining things, but I couldn't help but enjoy it. I liked being around her more than I had expected. "Alex," she said one afternoon, calling my name for the first time in years. "Do you ever take a break from the gym, or do you just live here now?" I smiled, wiping sweat from my forehead as I tried to catch my breath. "I have a life outside the gym. Just, not as much of one lately." She raised an eyebrow, the playful smile still on her lips. "Sounds like you need a break. Maybe we should grab another coffee sometime." My heart skipped a beat. There it was again. She wasn't saying it as just a friendly gesture, this time, it felt like an invitation. Something more personal. I wasn't imagining things. "Sounds good," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. She paused for a second, as if carefully choosing her next words. "Tomorrow, after your session. I'll be free." I nodded, my mind spinning. Was this a date? Or was it just two people continuing what had started as a casual coffee? I couldn't tell, but the excitement was there. The next day, after an especially grueling workout, I couldn't leave the gym fast enough. I changed quickly, glanced at myself in the mirror, and tried not to look too nervous. I had never gone out with my trainer before, if that's what this even was. As soon as I stepped out the door, I saw her sitting at a small table outside the cafe. She looked so at ease, having swapped her usual gym attire for simple jeans and a t-shirt. She waved when she saw me, and I felt a warmth spread through me. I sat across from her, trying not to fidget. I wasn't used to feeling this nervous around someone I'd spent so much time with professionally, but now, it felt different. "You seem calmer today," she said with a teasing smile. I chuckled nervously. "I guess it's easier to relax when I'm not lifting heavy weights." "Fair enough," she said, leaning forward slightly. "But really, you do seem more at ease. I think the coffee's working." I smiled, relieved by her easygoing tone. Or maybe it's just the fact that you're not yelling at me to do more squats. She raised an eyebrow. You mean I'm not allowed to yell at you? No, I said, shaking my head. I might run away if you did. She laughed again, and it felt like the tension I had carried since our first awkward moment was finally melting away. This was good. This was natural. We sat there for hours, talking about everything and nothing. We shared stories about growing up, about how we each got into fitness. She told me about some of the weirdest things she'd seen at the gym over the years. Some of them made me laugh harder than I expected. It wasn't just about training anymore. It was about getting to know her. Seeing the real her, not just the professional persona she put on every day. And it felt amazing. I realized I was starting to look forward to seeing her, not just for workouts, but for her. As the evening wound down and we both finished our coffee, I couldn't ignore the feeling that had been growing in my chest since I first met her. Something was happening between us, unspoken, but undeniable. She stood up, stretching a little as she prepared to leave. Same time next week? She said it casually, but I could see a hint of something else in her eyes. I stood up with her, still trying to sort through my emotions. I'll be there, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Good, she said, flashing me a warm smile. Because I think you're starting to get used to this whole coffee break thing. We said our goodbyes, and I walked back to my apartment, my thoughts more scattered than usual. What is happening here? Am I imagining things, or are we really starting to build something? And if we are, where will it lead? I never expected this when I first walked into the gym. I just wanted to get in shape, to improve myself. But now, something has changed, something I can't ignore. I don't know where this will go, but I can't deny that I'm looking forward to whatever comes next. It's strange how life can change with just one unexpected moment, one mistake, one awkward encounter. It can feel like the world is ending or like you've just stepped into a new beginning. For me, accidentally walking into the wrong locker room led to something I never could have predicted, something real, something beautiful. We were no longer just a trainer and a client. We had become friends, trusted each other, maybe even something more. After that first cup of coffee, everything started shifting between us. Our conversations became deeper, our time together more natural. What started as simple training sessions gradually turned into walks in the park, late-night talks about dreams, and laughter that lingered long after the jokes had ended. And I had to admit it, I was falling for her. Slowly, but undeniably. Her strength, her kindness, the way she lit up when she talked about the things she loved. It wasn't just her appearance that drew me in, though she was undeniably beautiful, it was how she made me feel when we were together. How she made me want to be better, not just for myself, but for her too. We weren't rushing. We let things unfold naturally, without pressure. It was a steady progression, and it felt right. Still, there were moments when I wondered if I was just imagining things, projecting more onto our connection than was really there. But every time we were together, it felt more real. One evening, after a long day of training, we sat together on the same bench outside the gym, just like we did after that first coffee. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over everything. It was peaceful, almost surreal. You know, she said softly, her voice more serious than usual. I've been thinking a lot about how we got here. About how we started. I raised an eyebrow, turning to look at her. You mean how I accidentally walked into your locker room? She laughed, warm, genuine. Yeah, that's one way to put it. She paused, glancing at me with that familiar smile. But it's funny, isn't it? How a moment like that can turn into something real. I nodded, my heart beating a little faster. I never expected it. That day, I was so embarrassed. I thought for sure I had ruined everything. But you didn't, she said, holding my gaze. It was just a mistake. And I think that's part of what makes us good. Us. She hesitated, as if carefully choosing her words. I didn't know it then, but I'm glad it happened. I'm glad we kept talking. I'm glad we didn't let it become an awkward moment that defined us. I smiled, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. Me too. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I could truly breathe around her. It wasn't just about the gym anymore, or fleeting conversations, it was something real, something meaningful. As the weeks passed, the more time we spent together, the more we both realized we were building something lasting. It wasn't about finding love overnight, but about slowly discovering that we had more in common than we ever realized, that we enjoyed each other's company more than we expected. I was never someone who rushed into things, and neither was she. We built our relationship on trust, on understanding, and on the simple truth that we liked being around each other. That's how it all happened, so easily, as if we had known each other for years. One night, after a particularly late workout, she turned to me as we were leaving the gym. Her eyes were softer, a little more vulnerable. "Alex," she said quietly. "I just want you to know something." I stopped, turning to face her. "What is it?" She took a deep breath, looking at me with that calm yet intense gaze I had seen so many times before. I think I'm in love with you. I think I have been for a while." At first, I didn't say anything. It felt like time had stopped, like the world was holding its breath. I felt it too. But hearing her say it out loud made it real. "I think I'm falling for you too," I finally said, smiling slightly. She let out a soft, genuine laugh, and my chest tightened with emotion. "Good," she said. "Because I've been waiting for you to catch up." From that moment on, everything changed, but in the best possible way. We didn't need grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It was just the two of us, finding something beautiful in the most unexpected place. We had moved past the awkwardness, past the uncertainty, and we were stronger because of it. In the months that followed, we continued to grow together, both as individuals and as a couple. The gym was still a part of our lives, but it was no longer the center of our universe. We made plans for the future, talked about our dreams, and supported each other in ways I never thought possible. What started as a simple desire to get in shape had turned into something deeper, something more meaningful than I ever imagined. That first awkward encounter, that accidental mistake, had become the best thing that ever happened to me. And I couldn't help but feel grateful for it, because without it, I might never have found the person I had been searching for all along.